Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to Agile for Practitioners. Gives me great pleasure to welcome you today. I have with me my coach, my favorite Agile coach. There are many people who train this stuff and coach, but my favorite is Roy. So, Roy, welcome, welcome.
Hi, folks. How you doing today?
They're doing all good. They're on
Awesome.
classroom mode, so we
Yep.
probably won't hear them. But Roy, tell us, you've been on this journey for a while in Agile. Where did it all start from?
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of years ago, I was a developer, and we were working in a number of different organizations. I noticed a number of we had a lot of project failures. Things didn't go well. Scope creep, all the normal things that you would expect with project failures. And I started looking for alternative ways, and I found myself in the agile space and went through my own personal agile journey from a developer to a manager, became a manager in an organization where I had brought agile into that space, and made lots of good mistakes, as I'm sure everyone has always made a number of good mistakes, and they help you out, help you learn an awful lot. So from there, I then became an agile coach and trainer. So I go around into various organizations and help them understand how to do agile and then work them through the process a little bit. That's a little bit about my background.
Fantastic, Roy. And I mean, I firsthand know the awesomeness of your training, how patient you are with people who are resistant, like, I'm not coming along for the ride. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it. And then you just get right into their minds and rewire everything, and they end up jumping on the wagon.
Yeah, I think the key there is that, it's very natural to be concerned about the kind of change that we're talking about. It sounds agile for a lot of people sounds very chaotic. And we'd like to try to dispel those myths and show how much control and discipline there really is in the process. And then it's not something to be overly concerned about because there's a lot of risk mitigation and management in the process. So what I'd like is for everybody to get to a point of understanding of agile and then judge what works and what doesn't work, rather than saying, no, it's not for me, it's not a good practice. And so you get the idea. We want to make sure that people are well educated and then make some decisions about what works for them and what doesn't.
Absolutely, Roy. And friends on the call, they pretty much know who I am. So that's your friend Phil. You know who he is. And without much ado, let's just get started because I don't want to give you another dose. They've already had a dose of this earlier, Roy. So let me spare them. They've seen my mugshot all day. Let's
Getting
jump
tired of
into
hearing your voice then, I suppose, right?
probably.
Probably by now. All right. So okay, so let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. And you should be able to see the flavors of Agile. What I thought would be a good idea to cover today is to jump into some of the practices. Now, there's a lot more to Agile than just practices, and I'm hoping to share that with you and help you see where it's also about the psychology of doing work, the social structure of doing work, how people interact with each other. That's actually probably more important than it is just the practices. The practices are very important to us, of course. But what's actually really much more important are the people doing the work, how they do the work, and how they interact with each other. So there's a lot of behavior driven kind of development activities that we do. And hopefully you'll start getting a feeling for that over the next several sessions. So today, let's start out with this and get a slightly better understanding of the word Agile. The first thing is that a lot of people get confused about what Agile really is. They hear the word Scrum. Probably most of you have already heard of the word Scrum. And the assumption is that Scrum is Agile, Agile is Scrum. And while Scrum is a flavor of Agile, there are actually a whole bunch of them out there. There's different frameworks, different practices. And we want to make sure we're going to talk about two of those practices today, maybe a third one if we have time for it. We'll certainly talk about Scrum. We're going to start there because it is the most widely adopted form of Agile. And you can see on this slide, this came from a survey that's done annually by a company called Version 1. And Scrum obviously is the most widely adopted form of Agile. Now there's another form that I want to talk about, and that's Kanban. That's Kanban. Now Kanban started in manufacturing, and it has some really good practices, some very simple, lightweight practices. And I really want you to understand the difference between Scrum and Kanban. They're both considered Agile or lean practices, so they're very related to each other. But basically what we're saying is that Agile is kind of an umbrella term with a whole bunch of different types of practices. Now, the key here is that we want to make sure that you choose the process that makes the most sense for each activity that you're doing, for each kind of work that you do. Different contexts, different kinds of work would require different processes. And choosing the wrong process can make it exceedingly difficult. I've seen it happen over and over again, where organizations that are trying to do Agile, they get a little prescriptive in telling the teams what to do. They encourage everybody to do Scrum, even though Scrum may not be the best practice for them. It's a great practice. I'm not saying it's not a good practice, but it may not be the right practice for their particular context. And over the next few minutes, you should start getting an understanding of why that works. So let's dive in a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about Scrum.